That was really wholesome music, like unintentionally really wholesome music. What is up, guys? Andy here from the Residents of Evil. Hope you're all doing well. We've got Andy from ScreenFire Germany. We got Andrew from the Residents of Evil. But most importantly, we've secured him. The package has been secured. Charlie Kraslavsky has made the stream. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Indeed, yeah, no, really appreciate you making time for us today. You've been a very busy and important man these last couple of months, and yeah, we're going to be talking all about it today, and hopefully we'll even get in some Resident Evil gameplay. So initially, why are you back in the Resident Evil universe?
Well,
Why
it's
now?
it's all thanks to Andrew Saullo, who first contacted me. Would have been maybe last spring or early last summer, with a storyboard for the Keeper, and I was just blown away by it, and so I contacted him right away and said, "Yeah, I'm all for it." And then it's kind of taken on a life of its own since then, and there's Andy from ScreenFire and Krishamir from Theatrical Chicken and JJ from Residents of Evil, and then we've done a lot of really cool videos along the way, the teasers, and I'm hoping that we're going to be launching that crowdfunding video soon and get the ball rolling.
Yeah, Andrew, can you talk to us just about how this has all came to fruition initially? How you've managed to track down the asset that is Charlie Kraslavsky?
Yeah. So obviously, I've always been a fan of Shinji Mikami's Resident Evil and some of the latter games, but I don't ever want to rip on anyone who likes the Paul W.S. Anderson movies because they're cool, they're their own things, but I'm not a fan. So I got excited when they were doing the reboot with Welcome to Raccoon City, because everything they were posting online looks like they were actually taking the time to build sets and blah, blah, blah. Then I went and seen the movie and had some feelings about it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I finally told myself, look, I like making short films and movies and stuff. I think I finally want to do something. So I reached out to just a bunch of like YouTubers, and JJ was the one that initially responded, but he's doing his own version with Sean Liebert of The Keeper with the via web series. And then that's when I reached out to Krishamir, who made his short with Andy about 10 or 11 years ago.
12 years ago.
12 years ago?
Yeah, it's
wow.
been that long.
For clarity, that's the German Andy.
Yeah. Yeah, and Krishamir was super nice, very cool about it, and later connected again with JJ, and he brought me on the team. And then that's when I think I messaged Krishamir, and I was like, do you think I should contact Eric and Charlie and Greg and see if any one of them are interested in being the Keeper? And jumped right at it, and he's been very gracious with his time and willing to travel everywhere. And Charlie, I can't thank you more than enough for all the time you've been putting in, just with the gun tuber type video and everything. So,
that was great. That was a real.
That was so
congratulations
fun.
on that, gentlemen. That was a great. Let me see. Whilst you just discuss how you put that together, let me see if I can pull that up on screen, because that was really awesome stuff.
I have not seen Welcome to Raccoon City yet, by the way. I'm kind of a frugal person. I don't like to pay for content if I don't have to, and so I'm kind of just waiting for it to be free on Netflix or somewhere.
Yeah. So here's a question I wanted to ask Charlie. I sat down with Pablo Koontz, who was the original voice actor for Albert Wesker. Andrew's also sat down with him historically, and he only realized in like 2017 or 2018, like he was literally just doing YouTube videos of like samurai swords. Because again, just like yourself, he lived in Japan, and he was doing just doing YouTube videos about these samurai swords. And someone just said, "You really sound like Albert Wesker," and he went, "Oh, Wesker, that sounds familiar." And then all of a sudden, like, you know, it kind of brought all of these early 90s Japanese memories back. When did the penny drop for you?
It's a kind of a similar experience for me, because, and you know, I don't want to go on for too long, but the long and the short of it is, because when we shot it was called Biohazard, I never knew that Biohazard and Resident Evil were the same thing. And I had somebody just walk up to me and show me the intro on their phone and ask me, "Is this you?" And I was like, yeah, that's me. I did that, I don't know, like 27 years ago. Well, not 27. It was like, it was in 2018, as I remember, when this happened. And, you know, I immediately remembered, you know, filming Biohazard. And then when this person was like, "This is Resident Evil," and I had never put that together, since I hadn't really played many video games since the late 90s. When I left Japan, I gave my my Nintendo 64 to a friend, and it was kind of like you know, like an addict. You know, I was like, "Here, take it," and then I kind of swore like I would just never buy another console again. So I never even knew Biohazard and Resident Evil were the same thing. And that was kind of an epiphany. And then, you know, still I was just like, well, you know, that was cool. I did that, you know, back in 96. That was kind of a cool thing. And started getting people contacting me to be on their podcasts and to do interviews and things like that. And I think I had an author interview me. I forget the name of the book, but he wrote a little book about you know, about the beginnings of Resident Evil, where my interview's in part of that book. I have it somewhere. I could go grab it.
Freeze.
Did he freeze again?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah,
I think he did.
Yeah.
He'll be back.
Or
He'll be
he's
back.
thinking really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, shall
Yeah,
I get
let me
that book?
text him.
I think I should. Yeah. No, it's cool. Yeah, he's had a couple of internet issues. We'll see if we can bring him back shortly. But that, my friends, is Charlie Kraslavsky. He is the original Chris Redfield live action actor. Gentlemen, what is it like working with the Chris Redfield?
You want to go first?
Sure.
Go first.
I mean, it's like a dream become true. You know, when we shot something back in September in Germany.
October.
Should I say what it was? I mean, we can, right?
You can probably give vague details.
Yeah. So maybe we recreated something.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't want to go into details, but it was just like, you know, you're standing there, and I played Resident Evil the first time in 1996, 1997, around that time, and I still can remember, obviously, seeing Charlie as a kid, and then working with him together and doing something similar. It was just crazy, and I still can't believe it. Yeah.
Was he easy to contact, to get his details, and was he pretty amenable to going along with all of your wacky projects?
Oh yeah, he was so helpful along the whole way. I mean, he's so easy to work with. I worked with several actors, and let's put it nicely, some are more complicated to work with than others, but Charlie is just so easy to work with, and he's so talented. So yeah, it was real easy.
I had that same experience back in June when I had him here. I mean, because we had 2 days to film freaking 18 videos. So I'm just trying to take care of everyone, make sure the schedule's flowing, everyone gets enough sleep. And
And this was the
Charlie,
Samurai Edge video, was it?
this was you know, the interview with the original cast and the React video and all that stuff, and the Resurrection, the short film, all that stuff. And I think Charlie was the one I had to put to work the most, and he just was cool as can be.
Yeah.
For all the work that we had to do.
Well, that's
So-
good. It's always it's a hard sell, isn't it? It's like, oh, you know, 25 years later, you don't mind doing all these wacky projects with us, do you? And it's like, yeah, man, I'm along for the ride.
Yeah.
That must be quite refreshing, actually. So talk to us a little bit about this, just while we wait for Charlie to come back. Talk to us about this Samurai Edge video, because I actually really enjoyed watching this. I'll bring it up on chat just for the crew watching at home. It's gonna be on silent, but talk to us a little bit about kind of what went into this. Why did you do this? Why did you put this together?
So we did a lot of work when we were in Germany, and we just didn't have enough time to shoot like posters and stuff we wanted to do for you know, the crowdfunding perks or whatever. So since Charlie's not too far from me, I was like, hey, can you just fly in and we can get these pictures, take a weekend or whatever. And this guy from a Discord group called what is it called? Where's the name? Why can't I see the name of it? Samurai Edge Discord group or something. Whatever. Yeah. Anyways, he contacted me and was telling me how cool everything is that I'm doing, and he told me about this gun that he has. So I was like, hey, can you ship it to my FFL where I live, and so I can get some pictures? And he's like, yeah, no problem. And then I'm like, well, shit, if he's giving me a real Samurai Edge that might as well do a video.
Yeah.
So I had my local sheriff's department help me out, because I work with one of the guys at my job, and I told him about what I was doing, and he's a really big fan. So he was able to get us at the training side of the gun range here where I live, and they ran Charlie through the shoot house. They put him on the long range course, and I've been chatting with Garand Thumb, and we're trying to work something out. But he just wants to make sure, you know, he can make it applicable to his channel. So I'm hoping it happens. If it doesn't, no big deal. But we'll see.
I'm so sorry, guys. I don't know what the problem is. Maybe
That's
it's
all
just a spotty Wi-Fi or something.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, actually, as soon as you're here, Charlie, on the podcast, what was your experiences shooting this, shooting the Samurai Edge video with Andrew? Are you proficient in guns? Was it something you had to pick up as you were going, or what was the experience for you on this shoot?
So, no, not proficient with guns at all. And
Thanks for your honesty.
Yeah. You know, growing up in Japan, there's just, you know, no guns in Japan other than for, I think there's about 200 licenses for the whole country for hunting, you know, and they're very much not, you know, I'm not sure if I'm correct to say this, but I think it was, you know, after they lost the war, I think it was the U.S.
disarmament.
Yeah, I think the U.S. is, you know, the U.S. dictated to them what goes into their constitution. So I think that's why, you know, guns were banned in Japan, probably, but need some fact checking on that. But I mean, either way, like, you know, growing up in Japan, guns are just not part of their culture at all. I did have a fascination for guns just from watching Western movies. You know, the most influential one for me was Dirty Harry. And I had like a very realistic model of a 357 Magnum that I used to love to, you know, play around like I was Dirty Harry. And we had some other kinds of like pellet shooting, you know, pellet shooting guns. and things like that. So, you know, there was a fascination for them, but I didn't have a chance to fire a real gun until we did this video. And so I arrived the day before, and some of Andrew's friends helped me practice, you know, loading the magazines and, you know, working the safety and all the other features on the gun, and practiced a little bit beforehand. And the kerfuffle was, you know, I wear contact lenses, and I forgot to pack my contact lenses. So I was just doing my best, you know, because just for, you know, I had glasses with me, but just for vanity's sake, I was like, I didn't want to wear my glasses in the video. um, and so we still, you know, I think we still managed to do a good job. But that was, yeah, that was really challenging. Even just trying to read the lines, you know, we had some lines that I was supposed to read, and I'd have to like put them like up to my face and like try and remember them, and then just have Andy, you know, kind of Andrew, I mean, you know, kind of in between takes, just okay, now you say this, now you say this. And so it was kind of slow going. And then the other thing about that day was it was really cold. It was freezing cold. So the elements were part of the challenge for me. And full bragging rights, I hit a target at 600 yards without my, actually, I think I put my glasses on for that. But that to me, like, and I hit it like dead center, and I couldn't have done it without the help of the sheriff, but because he did all the settings and everything. But I'm still the one who pulled the trigger, so I'm kind of proud of that.
That's what people ultimately remember, the person that pulled the trigger.
Right.
So overall, pretty positive experience.
Yeah, that was really, really fun. A really fun day. I think I enjoyed shooting the sniper rifle the best. But that Samurai Edge, that's such a cool gun. And the shotgun with the pumpkins was really fun, and the shotgun with the spray paint cans was a lot of fun. And just hanging, and in the shoot house, that was really, really cool. And like just getting to know those guys from the sheriff's office was really fun.
Yeah, no, it did look like you had a ball. This come out of the blue for me because I wasn't obviously clued in at this point. And when the video dropped, I was like, wow, what a really cool concept. It's like Chris is back. He's like all kind of, you know, rugged. But he's still got connections back to the original Resident. Oh, it's well done for putting that together, Andrew. It's really good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, and when we shot the teaser for Resurrections, we got to use a real helicopter on the ground, and you know, kudos to Andrew, you know, for getting all those kind of things, you know, for free, basically.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I had some friends at work help me out. Yeah.
So going back to the original Resident Evil shoot, Charlie.
Yes.
What was and again, I appreciate, you know, you shot this movie before, but you shot this short film before I was even born, so very long time ago. What's your best recollection of how you kind of got the role and the actual shoot itself?
Right. So from around, I want to say around 1992 or 1993, I was working for one of the most important talent agencies that represents Western actors and, you know, models and voiceover artists in Tokyo, called Inagawa Motoko Office. So I was basically a casting agent and also an actor, and the job came in, you know, to IMO, Inagawa Motoko Office, and the one who did the photo selection was Gen Inayama, who was like the office manager. And so he took the drawings that Capcom gave him and tried to match, the most, the talent as closely as possible to the images. They were drawings that he was given. And so I was already in the loop, even before the audition. I already knew what was happening. And it was the coolest job that had come across my desk, for sure, up to that point. And it was actually towards the end of my tenure there. And my best recollection is that the next thing was, I think we didn't really even have an audition. I think that Capcom just accepted our choices. And then the next step was we all went to a wardrobe fitting, and we all sat down in these little desks, and they had the drawings of the characters on the desks in front of us, and then they took measurements. And I remember them, fitting the knife on my chest, trying on the vest, that sort of thing. And just remember feeling like so excited because this, as I said, was the coolest project that I had been offered since, probably ever. And since then too, other than what we're doing now with the Keeper and with Resurrections. And then there was a lot of discussion about whether I should have scruff or be clean shaven. That was kind of the first, and then also dyeing my hair. So my hair is, naturally quite dark brown, almost black. And the idea was, I think originally to be kind of almost like a blonde color, but they ended up just using peroxide on my hair, which turned it quite orange. And then they asked me to show up to the first day with some scruff, but my scruff was so dark and the hair so orange, it just didn't look right. And they had told me to bring my razor with me. So then the decision, as I remember it, was made on on that day. Okay, just go ahead and shave. So it ended up being clean shaven. What else? Early on,
what was the because you said this was the coolest thing that had come across your desk. What was the actual word for word pitch? Because I'm imagining this is a time where fucking zombie movies aren't what they are. The zombie medium is not what it is now compared to what it was back in the early to mid 90s. What was the pitch? Like, you're going to be running, you're in a big field and you're going to be running for some dogs or something like that.
Right. So it felt like they were fairly secretive. I think the only thing that we knew before the shoot was that it was for a video game. And I don't think they ever mentioned zombies. I think they told us that there's a big monster and you're going to be, running away from the monster. And there wasn't, they didn't tell us much. I think we knew the title, Biohazard. We knew it was a video game. We knew it was for Capcom. But I think they tried to keep most of the other details, kind of as a need to know basis. And sometimes you didn't need to know until 2 seconds before, like there's a hand over there, a hand that's been cut off with a gun in it. It's over there, or there's a dog over there, or you're being chased down this, this hallway by a creature. And it was all just kind of, on the day of the shoot is when we found out most of what we needed to know.
Oh yeah, you can see your orange hair there actually.
Yeah,
because this has been slightly remastered. This wasn't what it originally looked like. It's been slightly remastered with machine learning. So let's see if we can pop that back up. There's a scene where you turn your head really quickly.
right.
You got this glorious. Look at this hair, dude.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and it's
like
so
that
high.
Yeah, I mean, you must have you got some serious lengths on that.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of hair anymore. Let's say on the top, it still grows on the sides. but yeah, and so we all went out there together for the first day was the location shoot, middle of August, near the Tama River, which is kind of a little further away from the center of Tokyo. And yeah, just a grassy area with a dilapidated, some kind of a building. I think it was like maybe like a warehouse or something that was abandoned, and it already had a spooky feel to it. And then they just, set up a lot of lights and smoke, and I think we might have done the interior shot first, the one with my eye where I'm being chased down the hall. I think that was the first thing we did. And so they said, yeah, look at the camera and make your eye as big as possible. But it just wasn't looking right to them because my eyes are kind of small. And then I can't remember if it was Shinji Mikami or the director sorry, the name escapes me at the moment. I think he was, either the assistant director or the director. I think they were both there. And I want to say it was Shinji Mikami who said, okay, well, just open your eye, just use your fingers and open your eye like that. So that's what I did, like get in the camera, open the eye. And I was so sure that my fingers would show, but I guess they edited it, in a way that it doesn't look cheesy. Like you can just see the eye. And I love that image of the eye. It's iconic, and I think it's one of the coolest things. And I really love the way we have an image like that for the keeper of just the eye that looks really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Resident Evil, especially in modern times, I would say has moved away from it, which is such a shame because the eye is, to me, the iconic image when I think of Resident Evil. When I think of Resident Evil, I think of an eye, like a bloodshot eye or an eye with a bit of blood in it or something like that. And it's really interesting that the eye that we all remember is yours.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Right. The eye, and then I guess the other iconic image is like the zombie like slowly turning around. It's a really cool image too.
You got some baggy pants in this shot as well. You got some real baggy pants.
The 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like I think it was just like a white shirt and the blue pants, and the knee pads. And those knee pads were quite handy. Like whenever you wanted to, it's so comfortable to put your knee on the ground with those things on, I have to say.
So there's a scene coming up here, and obviously you'll know about now because you've probably gone over this a billion times. But this was super controversial at the time. And this was you smoking a cigarette.
Right.
The iconic image that set the trend of Chris smoking. This was actually really, and I'm sure, well, actually, Andy's from Germany, and that's maybe the most censored game country in the world. This was. I remember this, but when it released in the PAL regions, what they did was they effectively cut a box around this. When it showed this, apparently there's a thing about not promoting cigarettes or something like that. So it kind of cut you out. It's so stupid when I think back. They cut you out and then had like an image overlaid at the top. Was that the same experience in America, Andrew? Or did you have the cigarette?
Don't remember. I always grew up with the director's cut DualShock version. That's all I ever had. That's all I ever owned. And I don't think he's smoking in that version.
I mean, as far as I remember, all versions, I mean, the first versions that were released in 1996 didn't have the cigarettes in it, but the director's cut, the German director's cut at least, it was, you could see it. It was in color. Charlie was smoking, and everything was in it except for the hat dropping,
Oh yes, yeah, the head dropping.
Yeah, that was just in the PC version. So, but everything else was in it.
And then
I just remember
wasn't it also true that in some markets it was black and white because
Yeah.
color was too much, showing the
That was
blood
the-
too much.
That was the first version. So the first
Right.
release was black and white. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, it added this a whole new element of horror for me having it in black and white. That kind of noir look to it. But yeah, it was mainly just for censorship. But this is a really cool scene. Look at that jawline, man. Look at that jawline.
I got a little
Cut
turkey
from
neck going on
granite.
these days. But,
No, that's glorious. What? So I guess the pitch here was just stand there, look as cool as you can, smoking a cigarette.
exactly. Yeah, that was. I can't remember if that was already part of the character. I think it was. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that was already part of his character. It wasn't just because I was but everyone kind of had their signature. So mine was smoking the cigarette, and Greg's was, slicking his hair back, and I think Barry's playing with his gun. Or is it like Rebecca pulls her pigtail? So there had to be like an action. I think for each character had their own little action for that for the credits.
Did you keep in contact with the other gentleman, or was it Andrew's shoot where you all got back into contact with each other for the first time?
So Eric and I were often at auditions and jobs together, and so I was friendly with him, and I would see him maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. Like we'd be at the same audition. Sometimes I'd be representing him, but he was a freelance guy, so sometimes we would be at the same audition, but he'd be represented by a different agent. So sometimes I was his agent. Sometimes he was the competition at an audition. Sometimes I would be his interpreter because I speak Japanese, so that was part of my job. And the others, no, like I only ever saw them at that shoot. And I think I was friends with Greg on, with Eric first, and I think I was friends with Greg on Facebook already. But that was, I think, after fans had started contacting us, and so I got back in touch with Greg via Facebook a few years ago. But I might have seen him at just maybe one other job in Tokyo back in the day, and he was like a school principal, I think, for the Australian school, and so I don't think he had a lot of time to do acting. So. But speaking of the lighter,
Yes,
this is a gift from Andrew, my Christmas gift.
let's zoom in on that here. Oh, there we go. Look at that.
Yeah. So we'll be using that, I'm sure, in the shoots, and then it's got the all that
Glorious.
Stars logo on that side, and then it's got. Restricted for designated administrator use only on the side.
So are you a smoker generally, Charlie?
Yeah, I've been a smoker for a long time, like since I was 16 years old. I think I quit once for about a year and a half, and but yeah, I definitely enjoy smoking, and I keep thinking, one day maybe I'll quit, but it's still with me for now.
Art imitating reality.
Yeah. And I get that question sometimes. What was the brand of cigarettes? So back in '96, I was smoking Marlboro Reds. So that's what.
Someone
that's
did
what the
actually say that
cigarettes,
to
yeah.
me. Someone did say it to me on Facebook. Actually, they said, "Please tell me he was smoking Marlboro Reds." So, breaking news:
The
Residents of
Cowboy
Evil
Killers,
confirmed.
yeah. And yeah, these days I smoke American Spirit, which is 100% natural. It's just tobacco, nothing mixed in. So I guess there's, it's at least it's not as bad for you as some other cigarettes.
Just going to start going through the chat. We'll get some questions going from the followers here. So chat, coming in and saying, was it only one shot to get the smoking shot, or do you have to keep repeating it?
I think we nailed that in the first shot. I mean, we might have done it a few times, but I think the one that they used, I think, was the first take.
Oh, right, okay.
I can't 100%.
Like
yeah,
smoking like a chimney. Like, I
yeah.
can't get it right.
And maybe I can add,
It's like a full ashtray.
he still can do it in one shot. I mean, yeah.
What?
I just saying he still can do it in one shot.
Yeah.
So maybe.
Yeah, I need to get
Just
some
a little
fuel
bit.
for this. I haven't fueled it up yet, but yeah, I think I was struggling to decide, should I do it like just flip it and light it, or the other method, you can't see me do it, but like you brush it against your leg and light it is kind of a cool way to do it.
Yeah.
But I think we went with it just to open it and light it method.
So our next question comes from Resident Evil Central, my good friend over on Twitter. Hey everyone, I was wondering how Charlie feels about being welcomed back into the now much larger Resident Evil / Biohazard community after all this time.
It's been amazing, and I've really enjoyed interacting with fans on social media. And then the most enjoyable part was when we filmed in Bavaria, in the forest. And so all the people that were crew and actors were all longtime Resident Evil fans. So I got to interact, face to face with fans. And it was also a very kind of a magical moment when I put on Krishimir's costume. So it was like putting on the costume for the first time in something like 27 years. And it had a really just powerful feeling. Like it made me feel like I really was Chris in that moment. It was just magical.
Yeah, it had a certain aura to it.
Yeah. And I think Andrew caught that on camera.
I really hope you did.
Right after I put the costume on.
Oh, it was JJ.
Oh, was it
Was
JJ?
filming the whole thing. Yeah.
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 And that whole time in Munich was just amazing. I can't wait to go back. Well, it's not Munich, but outside of Munich, an undisclosed location outside of Munich in Bavaria.
Bavaria. Do you know what? Funny enough, I was talking to another fan who's creating a fan movie about Resident Evil. I'm sure you know Unique Corn, Andy.
Oh yeah, she's a friend of mine. Yeah.
So she's doing a movie based on Lisa Trevor, and very similar. She's from Germany. The Bavarian architecture is very, very much Resident Evil. I love it.
Yeah, there are a lot of buildings that come close, but even in all of Europe, I mean, there are so many places where you can just shoot almost. I mean, it's almost the same, just laboratory, like lost places and stuff. There's a lot you can use that fits right into what you picture a typical Resident Evil mansion or location. But
the challenge in Germany. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no! I just found the picture. Where's the? Oh, is it here? Yeah. Like that was the moment.
Let me see if we can blow this up.
Wait. Sorry.
See if you can get rid of that glare.
Yeah. The first time Charlie put on the costume. I mean, it's a remake costume. It's not the original costume, but from the 2002 remake.
Right.
So without the shoulder pads.
Yeah, and the difference would be that the pants were gray instead of blue as well. But the other thing that came to mind just now when Andy was talking was, so the other challenge shooting in Germany is very, very strict laws about animals. So they wouldn't allow us to use a Doberman that had the ears clipped, for example. So there's other challenges.
Could you expand on that, Andy?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can say that, right? I mean, at this point, we recreated the original intro.
Oh, lovely.
And yeah, and we tried to get some Dobermans, but it was really hard to find even one dog with clipped ears because it's banned in Germany and I guess in almost every country in Europe. So
yeah, we can't clip dogs' ears, I don't think.
yeah, so we had to do a little trick with the camera and use a POV shot for it. But yeah, I think we're gonna release it soon on JJ's channel, right?
Probably. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think so.
So
Did I spill the beans again? Did I do it again? I'm sorry.
It's
I mean, at this point, it was.
We
It's
literally
okay, all right.
played it during the live stream with you in Germany.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
And if
I'm
you
off the
want
hook.
to,
Okay.
if you want to see any of the stuff, check out his channel or check out our socials. It's just the Keeper's Diary, all lowercase, one word. There's all kinds of pictures of what we're talking about. So
where did you get the gold lighter? Was it yours, Charlie? Is that? I think that's the next question.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that comes from Build the Mansion. The gold lighter inside the gold lighter from the original. Where'd you get that from? Was that just a prop that was given to you?
That was just a prop. Yeah. And I don't remember if it had a logo on it. Quite honestly, I don't know. Is there a way you can check the footage? I don't know if there's a close up of it. Yeah.
I think
your hand's obscuring it.
I think it was just a Zippo. I don't think it had the stars.
It's probably just
on
a normal brass lighter.
But I have my own now. So yeah, that was my Christmas present from Andrew, and I gave him dad jokes for Christmas because dad jokes is kind of a running theme when we're just messing around. I can't think of one.
Question? What's up, Caleb?
Oh, hey, Caleb.
That was his question.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Is that Build the Mansion, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Caleb is the Build the Mansion tournament guy.
Yeah, I keep seeing this, actually. I think I'm in one of the groups on Facebook.
I just had an idea. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
That seems dangerous. Okay, so something a little bit outside of Resident Evil. Let me just take this off the screen here.
Here we go.
Charlie, what is your favorite scary movie?
Oh, so I wonder, I think, growing up in Japan, we got to watch a lot of movies that might have been censored in other markets, but there was no censorship in Japan for things like violence, blood, guts. They would only censor. You're not allowed to show. You're not allowed to show sexual organs. Like in pornography. That's the only censorship in Japan when it comes to film. So I got to see a lot of gory movies when I was young. My parents didn't care. And I think the scariest one to me was, I want to say, The Omen, like the first Omen. I found to be, like, as a young boy, I was really scared. Maybe Exorcist was scarier.
Also good. Yeah.
I think I like The Omen as a film better, but like those scenes where her head is spinning around in The Exorcist, that was pretty scary for a young boy to see, I would say.
Yeah. All right. Here we go for 2 seconds. I'm just going to show off my birthday present from Charlie.
Oh, cool.
What happens if a frog parks illegally?
If a frog parks illegally, it's got to be something to do with his legs, I guess. I don't know.
It gets towed.
Oh, no!
What?
These are the birthday presents that Charlie got me.
Oh,
Dad jokes.
oh.
What did the fast tomato say to the slow tomato? You gotta get this one.
Splat. Fast tomato,
You got
slow
any guesses
tomato.
there? What
I
did the
mean,
fast
I read
You
it, so I saw it. Yeah.
catch up?
Ah, classic.
I'll spare you
Classic.
guys the torture.
I can feel the collective groan from all the people that are listening right now.
Absolutely brutal watch there, Andrew. Brutal watch.
Hey, he got it for me.
I did see actually a couple of comments here that said Chris Dadfield, which was absolutely beautiful. So
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
I think that sums it up perfectly.
Is he going to be the Pedro Pascal of
Right.
now?
Of the RE world.
Good
So
Lord.
yeah, I don't know that much about the video game The Last of Us, but in the and I hope I'm not spoiling this for people, but I think they do read some dad jokes in the show.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like puns, I think.
Yeah.
She's got a book of puns.
Yeah.
I haven't even watched it. Oh.
So have you had a chance to kind of, I'd say go back and play? Appreciate you're a busy, important man these days. But have you had a chance to at least kind of understand like who Chris Redfield was and his journey through the video games? Like maybe Andrew or Andy has caught you up with it.
Yeah, it seems very complicated. And I did watch. There was a video I watched that I think summarizes the whole, saga of the video games from the beginning until I don't know until which game. I think it's like a couple of years old. It's like a video that's I want to say it's about 2 hours long, where they sum up the story and all everything that happens from game to game to game. And obviously, I think sometimes there's differences, right? Like maybe they change somebody's backstory or something from one game to another, or a little bit about their character. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on that. But I feel like I have at least a decent understanding of his journey. And then Wesker, like he's dead by now, right? Wesker.
Yes. Supposedly.
And what happened to Jill, how she was under his power, and then and then now she's back to being Jill again. And like, there's just so many characters that even if it was all explained to me, I don't think I would retain all of it. That's just so much to it. But I think I got all the high points. I think I understand them now.
I think the best way I always describe Resident Evil for people that aren't familiar with it immediately is I like to compare it to Star Wars, where there's like an original trilogy, then there's like a remade trilogy where they kind of retold the older stories, and then there's like a new trilogy which is completely different than what the old ones was. And generally people have cliques amongst them. Like, for example, Andrew, Andy, what sort of fans are you? Are you classic fans or are you modern fans? Yeah, well, exactly.
Classic.
There you go.
I mean,
the
I
original
like
1,
the
2,
remakes.
3.
I really enjoyed the second remake, and I'm looking forward to the fourth remake. The third had some issues, but
Some
certainly did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to be nice. But I prefer the classics.
Yeah, same here.
So this was cool as well. I did this come across my desk like a little while ago. Actually, you'll immediately know what it is when I show you. But an actual lore accurate Chris in Village. Let me see if I can bring this up. This is fantastic. Shout out to Darkest Voltier.
This
so good.
Is so cool.
Putting Charlie, if you're not familiar, Darkness actually modified Charlie into Resident Evil Village, so we have a lore accurate Chris Redfield.
We were working with him on that.
Oh, okay, tell us more about that.
So when Charlie was,
go ahead. Yeah, actually,
when he was,
do you guys mind if I'll leave this in your hands just for a minute? I nature calls. I'll be right back.
No dramas.
Yeah. Oh, Charlie was here what, like 3 weeks ago, when we were filming the crowdfunding video, and we got some, I guess, not like a scan, but I have a Sony A7R IV, and we needed to get a model of his head, so I just had him sit in front of the screen, and I took a picture of him like this, like this, like this. And then I sent, the whole 360 compilation of images to what's his name? Darkness
Vaultier.
Vader.
Vaultier.
Vader.
Yeah. Vader.
I've been communicating with his friend Robin, who is doing like open world kind of GTA style map of Raccoon City. And I sent them to him, and he sent them to Darkness Vaultier. So,
yeah, that was that just came out of nowhere. I was like, "Whoa, this is kind of cool." I figured that you might have something to do with it.
Yeah, so I sent him the photos, and then he made the mod, and I think I don't know what they're gonna do with it, but they're probably gonna release it soon. I know JJ probably will do a video on it or something. So. Yeah,
we will discuss the Keeper's Diary in just a second. I do want to take a couple more questions when Charlie's back from the chat.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah, then we'll start cracking. I was going to play Resident Evil, but we're actually having such a fruitful conversation here. I think it would be detracted if I open the game up. So
I don't mind.
Yeah, but it gives us ample opportunity to talk about obviously the Keeper's Diary in depth, where you want to take it. That sort of thing. I think it's an interesting concept. So
cool.
We'll wait for our man to get back. And yep, speak of the devil.
Sorry about that.
So we're going to take a couple more questions, Charlie, and then we'll start getting into the nitty gritty, so much as we can about the Keeper's Diary.
Okay.
So if we start with a couple of questions here. So our good friend Jesse Dool, Row Team member, he says, Charlie, not sure if I can say, but has Capcom reached out to you yet after coming out into the spotlight more with the Resident Evil community?
No, I have not had any contact with Capcom. I know that a fan who said he used to work for them, told me that he would contact their president for me, but I haven't heard anything back. And I wonder if, that could be maybe a tacit approval. The fact that they're not contacting us could be like we see what you're doing and we like it, we can't comment on it. And, if Constantine Film or Netflix, sends you a cease and desist, that's your own problem. Maybe that's their attitude.
Yeah, kind of like ask for forgiveness. Beg for forgiveness rather than ask for permission.
Yeah. So either that or, or they're just really busy with all the things they're doing, or I'm not sure.
Maybe I can add just something. So that's the reason we're gonna talk about it later when we start the crowdfunding campaign. But obviously, for copyright reasons, the Keeper's Diary is only inspired by Resident Evil, so we can't call it Resident Evil. So yeah, just to get that out. So it's not a Resident Evil project,
right?
Else Capcom could just shut us down.
Yeah, no, but that's not uncommon. Although Capcom, in recent memory, have been very, very lenient with the use of their IP. So you might be able to you might be right, to be honest. You have I appreciate you've already recited this, but this is just a question about the eye again, Charlie. They might have missed the comment from earlier.
Yeah.
So let me just bring that up, and I'll tell you what, we'll bring up the actual eye itself, just for context. There we go. So ask Charlie about the deal with the shot of him opening his eye. How did he do it? Was it simply a case of him holding his eye really wide, or was it some other kind of trickery?
Did he freeze again? He froze again.
Yeah. Or he
no,
I
he
can
tries to remember real hard.
I can help answer. What do you say?
What I just
He's,
said, he tries to remember real hard.
he's showing us the eyes.
Yeah.
But that's cool. We'll get Charlie back. I know he's had a couple of problems with his network connection. We'll bring him back as soon as we can. But yeah, Andrew, if you can fill in the story for us.
So I kind of asked him the same question. I was like, "Is this some kind of Clockwork Orange type deal going on?" But he said that they just wanted him to open his eye really wide, and he couldn't get it open, wide enough. So he just kind of did that for the close up of the camera when they filmed it.
Which is surprising because you can't actually. You'd think you'd be able to see his fingers, but you can't. They've literally got that perfect. Unless they reached a bit further down. I can't see that working though.
Yeah, that's my understanding of when he tells the story. So, yeah.
So I suppose we'll start to preempt the Keeper's Diary here. But if you can kind of give us like the origins of the Keeper's Diary, why you're doing the Keeper's Diary. I'll take it. Is it a joint venture between yourselves? Just for clarity, or is it your project, Andrew?
It's something I guess I really wanted to do, and like I said, I contacted a bunch of people on YouTube, and then I eventually made my way over to Andi and Kraslavsky, and they were totally on board. So, I mean, now we're all just going to be doing it together. But to me, I mean, there's a few things I've always wanted to do, like the epilogue files from the end of Nemesis as well. I think would be cool to make into short films individually. This particular document is probably one of, if not the most iconic, memorable, just horrific, journal entry in any of the games. So it's the one that kind of stood out the most to me over the years, and it's almost very Jack Torrance-esque from The Shining. He's losing his sanity, he's losing his humanity, he's drifting into the realm of the undead, and the way it's told is very unsettling.
Oh, just
sorry.
a man, just
I'm
a man,
so
just a
sorry.
man we was after. But it's all good. It's
Yeah.
all good, Charlie. We just to catch you up. We're talking about the Keeper's Diary.
Oh, cool.
So I take it, gentlemen, this is just effectively a teaser trailer or a concept trailer of where you think it's going to go.
Yeah.
You want to answer that, Andrew?
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you want to see it, there's a full storyboard video on Theatrical Chicken.
Okay,
so
let me drag that up while you guys just round that off for us. How long did that take to put together?
The live action teaser, I don't know, a couple months from when I contacted you guys to contacting Charlie. Maybe 4 months, two to 4 months.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I think you built the sets pretty much by yourself.
Yeah, he did.
In
I still think it's so amazing.
Like a week or 2 weeks or something. He just did it all by himself, building that set. I mean, I was just blown away when I got there and found out everything that had gone into it.
So was that in the US? Was it, Andrew?
Yep, right here where I live in Cedar City, Utah. For Southern Utah University, let me use their TV studio classroom.
See, that always helps, doesn't it? If you're doing stuff like in real life, or having these connections which afford you access.
Yeah, Andrew's he's like the Albert Wesker in that world. He's only working at these universities so that he can use their facilities. He's like getting in with the sheriff's office so that we can use their stuff. Yeah. But he's got a secret agenda. True. Yeah.
And how did So Andrew and Andy, how did you kind of both mutually decide, you know, this is something that we want to take forward?
You probably have to answer that one because I'm the one that pitched it to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, the first time, I mean, it's no secret, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, obviously, and yeah, that's the reason why we made the first, or our movie, our interpretation of Resident Evil back 12 years ago. And after that, I don't know, we always wanted to do more, but you know how it is. It's everyone has so much to do, and family and stuff that's going on, and we just never did it. And then Andrew approached Krishimir, our cameraman and also producer, and I don't know, everyone was like back on fire, you know. We were like, oh yeah, okay, let's do this again. And the script was just so good. We decided, yeah, we want to be on board with this. So it's because same as Andrew, we were really disappointed with. I don't want to say people can't enjoy it, but we were really disappointed with the movies because they just don't do it justice. It's just not what we expect from a Resident Evil movie. And Andrew's script was just so on point that we decided, yeah, that's something we should do together. And I'm so to be part of this team and this project. So yeah.
I almost feel like,
Thank you.
and I've mentioned this before, just on other streams and whatnot. I almost feel like we've been gaslit into thinking that it's just not possible to create a successful adaptation of Resident Evil, just because of how it's been dealt with Constantine film, whether that be obviously the films or the new or the recent Netflix series that's come out. So with that in mind, and obviously The Last of Us it's come out to critical acclaim. Everyone's loving it. It's really, really authentic, really close to the source material. Andrew, how do you ensure? How do you ensure that you put out an adaptation that, one, you're happy with, but two, you're obviously going to take your own creative liberties, but three, it sticks near to source material. How do you achieve that?
Just stay true to the lore. It's there. I mean, this is one of the games that has like tons of reading material in it, so it's like a sin to not adapt it into a, you know, faithful live action format. I mean, there's just so many aspects in the story. Like, there's this double agent. He's working for this organization. Everybody thinks the organization is this, you know, friendly company, and they're doing really bad things secretly. And then there's this bad, evil police chief, and nobody knows about it. I mean, there's so many things you can tell a good story on, and they just don't do it.
I think they tried a different approach with, I mean, the Anderson movies were just too far away from the source material, and I really couldn't take them seriously. I mean, it was more and more ridiculous with each movie, and what was it called? Welcome to Raccoon City. There was just too much in it. I mean, it was just an overload, and I think that movie could have been good if they just focused on the mansion. And yeah, I have to admit, I'm also not a fan of the animated movies, especially Vendetta. I think it's just a little bit ridiculous, but that's just my opinion.
I'd way rather watch them than I would the other movies, though. Yeah.
But I mean, that's always been the criticism, especially with Welcome to Raccoon City. It really felt like, from a fan's point of view, that Johannes Roberts didn't really understand what Resident Evil was about. But do you necessarily?
Maybe there was pressure from. There could have been pressure from the studio.
Yeah, agreed. But my point is, do you have to? Because Craig Mazin wasn't a fan of Last of Us necessarily. He obviously appreciated he had Neil Druckmann on board to help him along with the script. But Charlie, do you think it's essential that you need to, when you're adapting a media like a video game, that you really need to be a fan of it? Because obviously, from yourself, you're not a fan. So adapting your own rendition of whether it be Chris Redfield or the Keepers, do you need to be intrinsic? Do you need to be a fan to adapt it successfully? Is what I'm saying.
I think you need someone on your team that knows it like the back of their hand. But do you have to be a fan? I want to say yes. Like, if you're not a fan, then why would you do it? Maybe that's not a good thought.
Well, is it?
Let's say
all we're
let's
thinking
say
of,
there's
because you've seen. Have you seen Welcome to Raccoon City?
I haven't.
Oh, okay,
But
right.
I mean, let's say there's like this really hot Hollywood director, who's every film he makes is a blockbuster, and he's never heard of Resident Evil, and then they offer it to him. Could he make a faithful adaptation? Yeah, it would mean he'd have to either do his homework or have someone on his team, as a resource that knows it like the back of their hand. But the desire to do a faithful adaptation would have to be there to begin with, right? So with studios, it's all about the box office, how to make money. So I guess it would have to be the best of both worlds. Like, they'd have to believe that's what people want to see. That's what's going to sell. They'd have to believe that first. And I think historically we can say that they either didn't believe that or just wanted to make their own stories to begin with. Never had a desire to make something faithful. Just wanted to make something that was their vision, that they were going to love and have fun making. And I guess that's probably what happened.
How do you avoid the pitfalls of this? Sorry, Andy, but it relates to Keeper's Diary. How do you avoid these pitfalls? Because you guys have a vision of what you want the Keeper's Diary to be, but your vision might be different to what I think Resident Evil is. How do you toe that line?
Or Charlie.
Go ahead.
Oh, Charlie.
I
thought that was...
I think, I mean, you can reply to this too, Andrew, after me, but I think we are being, faithful to the source material from what I can see. Obviously, there are certain things, that you have to fill in the blanks. If it's, if the source material is just the diary. There's all these other things that happen that aren't going to be in the diary, and you have to fill in those blanks yourself, and you just have to use your best judgment in doing that. But I think the only thing that we can do is to just not do anything that's very obviously wrong, that's obviously incorrect from the perspective of the lore. As long as we don't do anything glaringly contrary to the lore, if we fill in the blanks intelligently, just, okay, well, this is what happened, so probably this is what happened leading up to it. And I think as long as we do it carefully and think it through, I think we're going to make a great story that's faithful.
And posing the question to you, Andy and Andrew, your thoughts on that?
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, the diary is there. All you got to do is read it. So,
I think one of the biggest problems with the existing movies is that on the surface they try and portray those characters just as very cool and action heroes, like over the top. And I think what's more interesting, or what would be more interesting, is to tell their journey, how they overcome the fear, because that's the story of the player. So you have to transform the medium from the game to the movie. So tell the story what the player felt back then through the eyes of the character. And I think that's what the studios or the directors just don't understand. They just want to tell a story about a super cool character that shoots zombies, but that's not what Resident Evil, and especially the classic Resident Evil games, are about. It's all about the journey of overcoming fear. And I think that's what you have to tell. I mean, in Welcome to Raccoon City, I remember the scene where Jill just shoots a zombie bird right next to the face of, I don't know if it was Chris. It was so out of reality, that's just something that a special force member or even a scared or a character in a very tense situation would never do. It's just something that doesn't fit for a serious story. And I think that's the main problem why, just in my opinion, all those movies failed to tell a real Resident Evil story.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, really. I mean, but this is basic screenwriting 101.
It is.
Like, I remember learning this back, like when I was doing my film degree. It was very much like, right, this is a story you want to tell. Ordinary people in extraordinary situations. That's all people want to see. That's all people want to see.
That's hero's journey 101. It's
exactly. You have to overcut, and specific to Resident Evil, it's. Yet these guys are like these super cool special forces people, as depicted in that fantastic intro at the start, with Charlie smoking his cigarette, etc., Barry holding his gun. But ultimately, they've never dealt with something that's not human. Yeah. So that's a variable that they weren't expecting to come into contact with. They just thought it was a rescue mission. So, but that's the real beauty, is it's ordinary people in extraordinary situations.
Yeah.
And is it? Do you think that motto, that vibe, is in the Keeper's Diary, about the Keeper himself being an ordinary fella?
Yeah. For sure.
Definitely.
I personally view the Keeper kind of like Jack Torrance from The Shining. Just a guy watching over a hotel and then catches cabin fever. Like, did he know he was going to catch cabin fever and kill his whole family? No. He just wanted some money for the winter. You know what I mean? So you didn't expect to be trapped in a haunted ski lodge.
Yeah.
So I suppose let's get down to the nitty-gritty of Keeper's Diary then. Have you got a kind of a feature length in mind of how long it's going to be? Have you got an idea of a shooting schedule, when it's going to be released? How long you're going to allocate yourself to actually produce it?
So we're probably going to set aside a week to shoot sometime in August. It'll probably be somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes, I would imagine, in length. The crowdfunding video, I mean, I have it pretty much edited. I think we're just working on the kinks before we, launch the page. We're still trying to get some people together for different parts of production, and what can we do ourselves to save money, and those kinds of things. But right now we're just kind of fleshing out the fine-tooth details, I guess, before we start really getting into the nitty-gritty of things.
And I know you mentioned about a crowdfunding video. Have you got a kind of date in mind that you're going to be dropping that?
I would say within a month or two. Once Andy flies back home to Germany, I know we'll probably be working on it a lot more. So
yeah. So a month or two sounds realistic.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And is it? You might have already gone over this at surface level. But is the intention of shooting it in Europe, like continental Europe, or is the intention of seeing if you can kind of allocate your resources to kind of Utah side?
So Krishimir has his whole film crew there.
Yeah. So it's for
just,
us.
Convenient.
It's cheaper just to produce it in Europe.
Yeah.
Just because we have all this equipment, like Red Gemini camera and lights and what you need for shooting a movie. I mean, we still have to rent a lot of stuff and hire people because we really want to do it justice and that it looks like a real movie, not just like a fan film.
Right.
Yeah, agreed.
Just from the looks. So yeah.
So have you got your locations in mind of where you're going to be of where you're going to be shooting?
We have ideas, and we were like researching a bunch of different spots. We've been interviewing like production designers and stuff, so we got a little bit of time to figure it out.
Yeah, and obviously we have to build a lot of.
I mean, I guess it depends on how much we raise and all that good stuff, location versus building and all that stuff. But there's always a plan A and a plan B.
Yeah, and a plan C.
Huh?
A plan C.
A plan C.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it all depends on how much money we raise.
Yeah.
What we can do. And
is it an open-ended budget? Is it, or have you got are you going to be putting we have
a goal.
I don't want to be treading on anyone's toes here, but have you got a goal in mind that's going to be public, or are you going to be a case of listen, we've got an idea? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And what's that got to be on?
What's it? What do we say?
Platform.
Indiegogo?
Yeah, Indiegogo.
Yeah.
It's going to be on Indiegogo, and I don't know. Do you want to talk about the goal, or should we reveal that later?
Well, we'll surprise people.
Yeah,
right. It's like
agreed. Well, obviously, Ro will share bits and pieces. I'll share some bits on Biohazard Class 5. We do our best to at least try and get the crowdfunding video out there into the hands of Resident Evil fans. Alan's just come in here, actually. My good friend, Officer Alan Lane. He says, is the Keeper's Diary the only project right now, or do you plan to make any other RE projects in the future? I know, Andrew, for example, you've done Resurrection, you've done Samurai Edge. Are there going to be more short bits and pieces like that?
So we're working on Resurrection kind of on the side right now because we're trying to focus on the Keeper's Diary. And then I mean, I have ideas and stuff written down. It's just, with everything going on and things cost money. So it's like, what can we do? What can we do at the moment? I know one of the videos that JJ had an idea for in Germany was like a versus video of Chris Redfield versus Hunk, like martial arts, Matrix style. I think that'd be freaking awesome to do. So that's just kind of on the back burner.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take it. Charlie would be doing his own stunts, I'd have thought.
I think it always looks great when actors do their own stunts, like Tom Cruise being the prime example. And I would love to do as many of the stunts myself as possible. Having said that, I'm not a young man, and there might be a limit to what I can do myself. But, if someone else does the really cool stuff, like maybe Krishimir or somebody does like the martial arts stuff, and then we do a take with me doing it so that you can splice them together so it looks like it's me. I think that's probably what's going to have to happen, unless I can, like in the Matrix, just plug in jujitsu into my brain or something,
It'll be like that scene from Family Guy where Stewie jumps out of a window and then it cuts to this just like 40-year-old action double.
Exactly.
I think in Germany they have good medical cover, so worst comes to worst, you'd throw you back out. It is what it is.
Yeah, I as a boy, I took judo lessons, but that's a long time ago. Like I think when I was like maybe 10 years old, um, and I took just a few lessons from a friend who was a black belt in karate. Again, a long time ago, like probably 20 years ago, maybe. It was actually, yeah, around the same time as we did Biohazard Resident Evil. So like 27 years ago, messed around with a friend that's a black belt, and I think I'm fairly athletic. Um, and I think, with a little bit of instruction, I could make some martial arts things look pretty good, but would definitely need I would need a stand-in for like the really cool stuff.
So, timeline of events then. Your crowdfunding video, again, you correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to run that within the next, month or so? How long is that
Hopefully,
campaign
yeah.
going to last?
To my understanding, campaigns usually just are like a month or so long.
Yeah,
But
2, maybe 3 weeks.
okay.
Yeah.
But it stays open from what I understand. So it may not have the traction you have in the first 3 weeks, but it'll stay open so people can go. I could be wrong. I'm learning as I go. So, but I have people that like Andy and some other people that help me.
And even if we don't hit our goal, we still can do something with it. So, as mentioned, we have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. Yeah. So it's not wasted.
That is the good thing about Indiegogo, is that you do get, if I'm not mistaken, you do still get to retain the funds, even if you only get like $50. Be a very interesting shoot if it's $50. Let me tell you, Charlie.
That would be
You might have to cycle to Germany.
I'll just shoot it all on my iPhone myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, all production funds are going straight to production. So nobody's.
Everyone is working for free,
Yeah.
involved, and it's just to secure the highest quality of production possible.
Yeah.
And to do it right.
Yep.
Yeah, and if somebody notices and wants us to do it for a real budget, we're all ears.
Yeah.
So I suppose one of the larger expenses is probably getting Charlie to Germany, because even economy. I think when I went to Vegas last year, it was like over $1,000 just to go from Heathrow to Vegas. So yeah, I imagine that's probably
it isn't that bad.
Massive cost.
I paid not even between $700 and $800 both ways.
Time of year too. So August is probably going to be at least $1,000.
Yeah, 1,000 is realistic. Yeah.
But I suppose if you cruise in Europe, you're saving so much cost because you've got the production there. So you've not got to build it in Andrew's apartment.
I mean, we could, but would be hard to fit 30 or 40 people in here. So
might get a noise complaint.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, here's a good question, actually. It's just coming from James Carmichael. Can he punch boulders?
Of course.
A key part of Resident Evil lore, of course.
Yes,
boulder punching.
I punch boulders every morning before breakfast to make sure. Don't want to lose a step.
He eats nails too.
Yep.
Beautiful. Another question coming in from Alan. Charlie, what are your, and again, appreciate you've probably reviewed summary videos and whatnot, but of what you've seen, do you have any other favorite Resident Evil characters?
So other than Chris, it says, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think
you can't choose yourself.
No. I always feel like the villain is the most interesting character in any story, and so to me, like Albert Wesker's got to be the most interesting character. in the series, and I think he's very complicated, and he evolves, from being, I guess, just a mole, or I guess he always had his own intentions anyway, but I think that's the fascinating part, is like Albert Wesker. Like, you don't really know who he is or what he's up to in the beginning, and I think they did a really good job of that with that character, the character development of Wesker in that story.
Yeah, he certainly he does have a very interesting arc. Even I think he changes accents about 5 times as well. He gets more and more English as the series goes on. I don't know how that
Yeah.
happened. Apparently,
That's one of
villains
the-
are English.
Yeah. That's one of the things Pablo mentioned to me.
Do you know what's really, really interesting about this? This is totally off topic, but Pablo Koontz lives in Southend. You're going to know where Southend is, Charlie.
Mhm.
Essex. He lives in Essex. So again, 2 people that were very closely associated with a random game in 90s Japan end up in the UK around the same time. So bizarre.
Yeah, it is. I wonder if there could be others. You never know.
Well, that. I was going to bring that up because it has been. I mean, it's almost become an urban legend in Resident Evil, and that is, of course, Jill from the original Resident Evil live action shoots. Inez, I believe her name was. Do you have any knowledge of who she is or where she could be or that sort of thing?
Yes, and that reminds me. So I think earlier we were talking about how I first found out that I was in Resident Evil, and I think I did actually, I did have somebody come up to me with their phone and ask me if that was me. But now, thinking back on it, I remember it was actually before that, when Fred Durf contacted me. It was the first time that I put it together, and he's like a super fan who's been searching for the original actors for decades, and he found me on classmates.com, I think. And then from there, he found me on Facebook.
On your face.
And
sorry, Charlie. What is classmates.com?
Classmates.com was it might still exist. It was like a place where you could go and post your like yearbook photo, from when you're a senior in high school, and reconnect with classmates that way.
Right. Okay.
It was like a place where you could go to reconnect with your high school friends. And I guess
like it was Christian Mingle or something like that, like a
yeah. I'm sure you thought it was Christian Mingle.
Yeah. So I think classmates.com was probably came around before Facebook was popular.
Of course.
Because everyone just uses Facebook for that sort of thing now. But and so sorry to answer your question in such a roundabout way. What was your question?
It was Inez.
Inez, yeah.
Yeah.
So this same guy, Fred, was able to contact her agent and was also able to obtain an email address that he thinks might be hers. We're not sure. And I think she, I could be wrong, but I think she did initially express some interest in being interviewed, and then just suddenly very quickly changed her mind, and kind of is in a stance of just not wanting to even be contacted. And we don't know why, it could be anything. But I did try emailing her myself to the email address that Fred gave me, and never got a reply. So it was just a shot in the dark. I don't even know if that was the right email address, but we know she's been contacted, and that she's just not wanting to be in the public eye, it seems. And we don't even remember, I don't remember what her last name is, and I don't know if anyone ever figured that out or not.
Yeah, because that's interesting actually. Because I think aren't you credited as Charlie Kraslavsky? But I'm sure Jill's only credited as Inez. if I'm
No,
not
it's
mistaken.
only Charlie as far as I
Yeah, first name
remember.
basis.
is
on
it?
his
All
first
first
name.
names, yeah.
Hey
Yeah,
guys, really
I
quick.
think. Yes,
Go
go
on.
ahead.
Real quick, I gotta head back into work, so I'm gonna go. I'll
Yeah,
leave it
okay.
to you.
Okay.
Before I go, I'm gonna plug these lights into the wall so the battery don't die. But
Oh, yeah, sure.
thank you for
All
having
right.
me. I love you, audience. Thank you. I'll see you guys later.
All right.
Indeed. No,
Thanks,
appreciate it,
Andrew.
All right, see you guys.
Cheers.
Here, you want this chair?
Yeah, give me the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks.
Oh, my back. I'm old.
Yes. So that's kind of the story of Inez, and then people ask about Jason, who played Joseph.
Yes.
And people ask about Rebecca, which was played by Linda. And I think in the case of Jason, I've seen some things online that say he was credited as Jason Wool, Wool, on something. I don't remember if that was like a credit for voice acting or something like that. That I saw somewhere that he was credited once as Jason Wool, Wool.
Right.
But I think there's been a lot of mistakes in the credits in the early games, and
Yeah.
I don't know that's his, I don't remember what his last name was, so I don't know if that's correct. And then I think for Linda, who played Rebecca, I think nobody knows her last name. I think it's just Linda. And I actually reached out to someone I know who used to work at the same agency as me. So I've actually put my feelers out just to see if there's anyone that remembers. But that was just yesterday, actually. So
Breaking news.
Yeah, I don't have any new information, but we'd love to find these people, and if they were into it, we'd love to include them.
It's just I feel like everybody connected with that project has a very interesting story. Of like yourself, obviously you lived in Japan as a as a foreigner, and then but also other like Pablo Koontz, for example, he lived out there. He was very much just doing the rounds with the modeling, the voice acting, the commercials, that sort of thing. But it's a completely different world now. Like we're trying to piece together a puzzle of a game that they didn't even think at the time would be successful. It was like the first time they'd ever done it. Like I really see Resident Evil as the first time a game kind of stepped into that kind of movie type of arena with live.
Yeah.
I know there was stuff that did predate it, but that was where it was like, whoa, they're using real people to do that. And it's a shame that they didn't end up continuing that trend. I think there was a question earlier about that, about
Totally
not
agree.
continuing that trend moving forward.
Yeah, I guess it's all just motion capture stuff now, and I guess it looks cool. And yeah, I definitely have a soft spot for live action, and I also have a soft spot for practical stunts, versus computer graphics. I feel like it always just looks better on screen, if you can do things that way. And it's kind of creepy to me how close it's getting to real life, like all these, motion capture, computer graphic kind of stuff. And I even saw on the news today, there's actually a virtual K-pop girl band now. They're not real people. They're just computer graphics, and they're like going through the roof. They're just so popular. And I don't know, like it's creepy to me, and all this AI stuff that's happening,
as well.
right? It feels like the Terminator's happening for real.
It is.
Like,
it's almost like we're aware of it, but we're not aware of it. It's kind of weird. Like I think it was you'll know what it is, Andy. It's the chat. Is it chat? Chat GDI or whatever it's called, the AI engine.
Yeah.
It actually can pass the US bar exam, which is
That's
insane.
creepy.
We are getting computer
yeah.
programs that can pass legitimate law exams. Crazy.
Yeah, I heard about that. so
But
creepy.
doom and
But
gloom aside,
Right.
go on, Andy.
Oh, no, I was just about to say, I really think live action intros and movies from the 90s, Command and Conquer as well, they it's just something about them that has, yeah, like a charm to it, like
Yeah, a vibe, yeah.
it's a vibe. Yeah, sorry. And I remember when I was a kid and played Resident Evil 2, I thought, oh, that's just a shame. I mean, the intro and all cutscenes looked amazing, but back then. But still, I think it would have been great if they did the first trilogy, so just so 2 and 3, like they did it with the first game, with live action intros would have been great, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Alan's back. He says, and again, if you want to be private about it, you absolutely can try. There's no pressure here. But what are you up to these days when you're not doing RE stuffs?
Yes. So I, for the last almost 3 years, have been working as a used car salesman for a good friend of mine. It's just a small, family-owned business, and I've been working really hard at it. I work 5.5 days a week, and I kind of run the place by myself, pretty much, because my boss is a lazy piece of shit, as I keep saying, who just takes advantage of me. Like, we're good friends, but he's a shitty boss. So he's German, and his wife is German.
Oh, they
and
are?
they've had this, yeah, and they've had this. Yeah, he's from Wiesbaden, just outside of Frankfurt. But he's been living here for like 30 years, so he's very Americanized. But so we sell a lot of German cars. We sell a lot of BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Volkswagen, and then we also have other makes and models too. But that's and we sell a lot of Mini Coopers. And I love cars. I've always loved cars. And I did work in car sales before, briefly, for a big company, and didn't really enjoy it and didn't think I'd be back to it. But I got into it really because of COVID. So I was doing something else, and then I got laid off because of COVID, and so I've been there doing the car sales, and I'm hoping that in the future I can transition to being a voice actor and work from home. It's not an easy game, there's a lot of people. It's very competitive, but I'd like to see if I can do that, and also maybe just try and piece together some other things that'll give me more flexibility with my time and being able to travel and do these projects with Andy, Andrew, Krishmir, JJ, and maybe someday we could get paid for doing it. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
that's the goal.
And I think Andy's been very kind to entertain ideas of other film projects, that wouldn't be inspired by Resident Evil, where we wouldn't have our hands tied that way, and we could actually make films or other projects where we could just do it as a normal production and possibly even profit from it. So I've shot some ideas his way, and he's very polite, and he's like, yes, we could do that. But I'm sure in his head he's like, yeah, that's a stupid idea, we're never going to do that.
So you're talking about rather than an adaptation of an existing media, like an original like horror film or something like that. Is that what you're suggesting? Oh, he's frozen again.
Oh, he's frozen. Oh.
We do have a couple more questions here, but we will wait for Charlie to stop smiling at us. So, man, he looks like he's going to be in a horror film just there, man. Scaring the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Well,
so maybe I can talk about this idea I had when we shot. Absolutely. You remember the scene we shot where we recreated the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood scene?
Right.
It was on, like here I come, and we had this idea it would be so cool just to do an episode like The Office. Ah, Charlie's back.
Yeah, sorry, I have to restart my Wi-Fi every time that happens, and then it seems to
Oh.
sort itself out. Sorry about that.
That's right.
Yeah,
As you
to
were,
do
Andy.
an episode just like The Office in that style, and like an apartment or house where all those old actors live together. So Charlie and Eric and Greg, and Charlie
Oh, well,
just
like kind
can't
of
get over the
self-aware.
yeah, kind of self-aware. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and I think that would be fun to do something like this. But maybe we have to see. It all depends. I mean,
Mm.
it's money is always a problem, if you want to do it right. So,
Absolutely.
but maybe I think that would be fun.
Well, it's not,
Like
yeah, I
Charlie
mean,
hanging around with still his vest on the couch and maybe drinking, smoking pot, and
Right.
Wesker comes always home. It's like, oh, why are you not working, you lazy piece of shit? And
Yeah.
yeah, would be kind of fun to do this.
Yeah, yeah, we could do that and just change the name of Resident Evil to something else, and most people would know what we were talking about anyway. So.
I mean, you just have to work with the colors, it's
yeah,
obvious.
it's identifiable.
Yeah.
We do have a great question here from Snacky Chan, who says,
I love that name. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea how big Resident Evil would turn out to be before taking on the role? Obviously, hindsight being 2020, of course.
Right. No, absolutely not. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, it was the coolest thing, the coolest project that ever came across to me, before or after that. But I had no idea that it would be successful, and I didn't know that it was successful until someone clued me into the fact that Biohazard and Resident Evil are the same thing, like decades later.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, even
no, go on, Andy.
Even the producers back then didn't know, because I remember a quote from, I don't know who he was, but must have been a Capcom producer, who told Shinji Mikami, don't put Capcom's name on this garbage project, whatever you have there, Biohazard project. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, supposedly that's what someone told him.
Yeah, that's not surprising. I think Japanese people can be that way sometimes, just very concerned about their image, especially as a company. And it was probably something so different than anything that had come before. So you can imagine, someone in that Capcom organization, thinking, yeah, I don't want our name associated with this garbage. Yeah, that's entirely possible.
And but Capcom have, especially in the 90s, they were like real mavericks. They would take risks, and they did not mind throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So I'm not shocked at Resident Evil 1 being a risk for them, because I don't know if you was aware, Charlie, but the second Resident Evil game, they ended up scrapping it at around 80% and then starting again. So you would never be able to do that now, or you certainly wouldn't be able to do it with a movie unless it's actually,
right.
I think Batwoman was scrapped at 80%. That new Batwoman film that was in the World Series.
Oh yeah, it was, right.
But yeah, I mean, you would never have that now, but that's just the absolute bollocks that Capcom had on them back in the day.
Yeah, I think I remember. I'm sorry to get off topic, Andy, but Andy at Declassified. I remember. I'm not sure if you would know this, but I think I remember hearing some years ago that they were going to make a live action version of the Thunderbirds.
Right.
And that they actually built the ships, like the big green ship. They actually built those things, and they still are probably in a warehouse somewhere, but they never made the movie.
That wouldn't shock me. Actually, I feel like I know that story. That's like whether it's an urban legend or that does ring true.
I want to see that movie. Like, maybe you guys are. Well, if you're from England, you probably know the Thunderbirds. But
Yeah, of course.
If you're not kind of my generation, you probably don't know the like Andy. Andy from Germany, do you know the Thunderbirds?
No, never heard of it. Or
Thunderbirds
maybe
a Go.
I know it under a
Thunderbirds a
different
Go.
name.
Yeah. So I think it's a generational thing. Like when I was a young boy, I would see it on Japanese television, and it's the puppets. It's what inspired Team America.
Yes. Yeah. What a great film that was.
Yeah. So it's like these puppets, and they have these lines on their mouths, and their mouths move, and it just looks really comical.
It does look like Team America. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where they stole the look from, the Team America film. But I'm sorry, I keep going off on these tangents.
That's right.
But yeah, I just don't understand that. It's like you go to those lengths of building all those things and then just don't make the movie. But
it's very, very peculiar. But risks and whatnot. Here's a question that I think I'd like to hear the answer to. Not necessarily regarding Portland, but to the outer extension of conventions, expos, etc. Is it in the realms of possibility that Charlie Kraslavsky will appear as Chris Redfield at some conventions, meet with some fans?
So I know we're definitely planning to attend some conventions to promote our films. Whether I'm allowed to appear there as Chris Redfield or not, I'm not sure. If I would be allowed to, I would be happy to. And even if I'm not allowed to, I mean, I suppose I could just wear something that's kind of similar and get away with it.
Oh, I suppose it'd be no different than me dressing up as Chris Redfield and going to just cosplaying.
Yeah.
So
that's fine. Yeah.
It might be more fun if I would attend the conventions as the keeper.
Yeah, I suppose. If you get a little stand or something. Yeah.
Hello, Penny J. Sorry.
And like do some jump scares at people. Just come out of a corner as the keeper.
Because that's like conventions are, as I've very quickly learned, that conventions are actually, especially with like games and like anime, I guess they're like huge. They're like massive fan bases go to these events. I didn't quite understand the concept of, like, even last year I was like, conventions, is that my sort of thing? But actually going there,
never been to one, but I'd love to.
Oh, I've been to many. It's so much fun. Yeah, I mean, Gamescom is a little bit different for me because I don't know if you know Gamescom, like the German video game expo. I only go there to the press section, so that there are no lines. But Comic-Con, it's always a lot of fun to talk to fans, and sometimes I get an autograph. I met Robert England a couple of months ago, and Robert Patrick and Lance Henriksen. That's always fun. But it's quite expensive. That's
yes. Signing all those autographs.
Yeah.
Let's see if we got a couple more comments, and then we'll aim to wrap up here. Let's have a gander. So Rochelle says, Charlie, would you have continued being Chris if they offered it to you? Assuming I'm imagining this is 1995, Charlie. Would you have continued with Resident Evil portraying Chris moving forward?
Yes. So at that time in my life, I had just gotten married, and I moved to London. And had I not done that, had I stayed in Tokyo, I have a feeling that I could have actually, some of my contemporaries at the time are actually quite famous in Tokyo now, whether they be TV personalities, not necessarily actors, but there was I'm not sure how it is today, but at that time there was kind of a demand for Westerners that could speak Japanese, and it's just kind of, I guess, their fascination with other cultures, but they loved having Westerners that could speak Japanese on Japanese TV, and I speak it fluently. I have an accent that fools people. So I know I'm getting a little bit away from the question. I'll circle back to it.
No, this is great.
But
this is great.
Like a contemporary in my high school was the opposite. She was Japanese ethnically, but had grown up in the States and spoke English and Japanese perfectly. And she became like a newscaster for the national, NHK, what would be the BBC in England. And other people that I was contemporaries with are on TV shows, dramas in Japan. And if I had just stayed there, I think I probably would have had a lot of success with it. And if I had stayed there, and in a perfect world, George Romero was involved with Resident Evil 2, made the commercial. Like, that could have been me. Had I stayed there, if they had called me, I would have said yes right away. I'll be there. And had I continued in the Resident Evil series, I don't think that I'd still be it. They would have definitely changed to someone younger by now, probably. But I would have loved to keep playing Chris Redfield, and if I get to do it again, it'll be a blast. And going back to like that mod where they put my head in the RE8, village version of Chris. I think that just looks so cool. I mean, there's some shots of it where my head just obviously looks too small. I kind of have a small head. And then there's also this one shot where it's like his face, but it's weird. I don't know if you know the shot I'm talking about in that little video sequence. There's like a shot where it comes back to him and his face is all weird. It's like,
or like your eyes are like just
Yeah.
sunken into your head. Like,
Yeah.
they're just gone.
I don't know what that was about, but it was kind of so. Yeah, in any shape and form I'm allowed to, I would love to play Chris Redfield again. Be awesome.
Do you miss Japan?
Yeah. I left Japan in '96. I went back not that long. Well, what is it now? About 6 years ago. For the first time, after having not been there for like 20 some years, I went back there because my father still lives there, and it was his 80th birthday. So my sister and my brother and myself and all of our significant others, we all went there to visit and celebrate his 80th birthday. And I was kind of surprised how little Tokyo had changed. Obviously, the skyline had changed. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, not much had changed about it. The only thing I kind of noticed was, Japanese people tend to be very, friendly, happy, optimistic kind of people. And I don't know if it was just because economically, times had changed or what, but I just felt like that it seemed a little gloomy there. Like just people didn't seem as happy and smiley as maybe it was just because I was younger when I lived there. I don't know, but I love Japan. Tokyo is an incredible city, but Japan is so diverse, from north to south, and there's so many. It's like when you live somewhere, you don't do the tourist things, right? And so if I could go back to Japan now, I would love to just go and visit, all these really cool like fishing villages and the more rustic side of Japan, because I was just kind of a kid in Tokyo. Like I was like a city boy, so I'd love to go and explore the rest of Japan.
Obviously, you grew up in Japan. What was it like as a like a gaijin,
Hmm.
as a foreigner in Japan, like
Right.
being different from everyone else? Well, actually, what did you go to a special school where there were other like American or ethnic
Hmm.
Americans, should we say?
Yeah. So I went to a private school. The first one I went to was called Nishimachi International School, and it was, the curriculum was taught in English. And we also had 1 hour of Japanese lessons a day, and they would adjust it to your level. So if you had just arrived, you'd be in the beginning, Japanese class, and if you were more advanced, you were in the advanced Japanese class. But everything else was just, like a very similar to an American curriculum. And then we moved to Hawaii just for a year when I was 12, and I went to the Kahala Elementary School there. And then we only stayed there for a year. And then we moved back to Japan. And so from what we call junior high, which is when you're, about 13 years old, until I finished high school, I was at the American school in Japan, which is another private school. And most of the students were either American or from Europe, or, some of the kids were Japanese but had been born in the States, and it was too hard for them to go into a Japanese school. So it was a very kind of international feel at our school. And so it was kind of a multifaceted question. So it was like Japan. And then what was the other part of your question?
No, it's just do you miss Japan?
Mhm.
You better than anyone can probably tell the cultural differences between like the Western world and
Right.
Japan. What is it about Japan that you do miss? Like even if it's like I don't know how they do things day to day, could be public transport, etc.
Sure. So the thing about Japan is they have such a sense of pride in everything they do. So it doesn't matter, whether you're um, a janitor or a CEO of a huge multinational company. They all put 110% into everything they do. And I can't say the same about most other places I've lived. You know, such a sense of pride, civic duty. They're among the most educated people in the world. They have like the highest literacy rate. It's an old culture, uh, so they have their own kind of things that they have hangups about. They were a very isolated country, until a few hundred years ago, when they were annexed. So they kind of uh, were just sheltered, amongst themselves for a couple thousand years, really, until they joined the modern world. And I think there's just so much there. There's so much. It's such a rich culture. And the only thing I didn't enjoy was, I have to say, Japanese television was awful.
What was
Um,
that?
it was, just tons and tons of like game shows, reality shows, singing shows, and not much in the way of like dramas or movies or, and I wasn't into their music, and I wasn't into their silly game shows. And it's funny because when I lived there and they would have these shows on TV, um, which are, kind of like Fear Factor, where you have to eat disgusting things, or and I remember saying to myself, they would never make that kind of a show in the States, right? And then all that Japanese game show stuff crossed over. I think it first crossed over to England, where they kind of did their own version of those Fear Factor kind of shows, and then
Yeah.
it kind of wormed its way into the States. And I mean, some of those shows can be entertaining, I guess. But that reminds me. So I think Andrew, Andrew, Cedar City, Utah,
Mhm.
Andrew, he's got this. Like dream to go. I guess there's some kind of ninja competition in Japan, like one of these kind of silly shows where ninjas compete, like Ninja Gladiators or something like that.
What?
Yeah.
What? Takeshi's Castle?
Is that it? Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, it's
And
similar.
yeah,
Is that what we're talking about?
Andrew's dream is to like go and be a contestant in that.
Yeah, I think it's called something. I was talking to my American friends about. It's called something else in the US. It's called like something challenge. Hang on. Takeshi's Castle. It's called
Ninja
Takeshi's
Warrior.
Castle in the UK.
Yeah.
Ninja
think
Warrior.
that's
Yeah,
it.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
But
Turbulence.
Yeah. That's it.
So would you? This is going to sound like really bizarre, but obviously you're in
Mhm.
an extremely unique position, and you're a very interesting man. So that's why I'm asking this question.
Mhm.
Do you identify as Japanese or do you identify as American?
I would say that I consider Tokyo as my first home. It's where I was born. It's where I was raised. And they, I think, accepted me into their culture as much as they can accept any foreigner, because they're not ever going to be fully accepting of a foreigner in their culture. It seems like it's just the way they are, and I don't fault them for it. But I think I was accepted as much as one could be. When you know their language, when you know their culture, they're instantly a lot more accepting and friendly towards you. And I, had this feeling when I was young of like a rebellious part of me that I was like, I don't want to live in Japan anymore. I want to go live in America. And I think that was because I was so much into like American films, at the time. All these great films that they would show, like The Great Escape, or it's like the kind of the golden era of Hollywood movies. Made me want to live in America because I was an American and I felt like I didn't really know America. And it was just a phase I went through, and then I realized how lucky I was growing up there. And I have to say, I was a bit of a nightmare back then, and me and all my friends, because there was this kind of license to do whatever you wanted to as a like, I think it's different now, but when I was young, it was like almost a license to get away with anything. Being a foreigner, it was like, oh, he's a foreigner, they're different. So we
even
would,
though you're pretty much like completely like assimilated to their culture.
right.
Oh, he's a foreigner.
But
Just let him do what he
yeah,
wants.
we could always just we could pretend we don't speak Japanese, and and we would just get up to all kinds of shenanigans. But I miss that time in my life. As you do, like that's kind of the time you look back to, right, when you're growing up, like when you're, I don't know, like a high school kid. Like that's kind of the time you look back on fondly. So I look back on that time fondly. I don't think I'd want to live there again now, unless I was very, very successful, because it's just so darn expensive to live there. It's a great place to visit for sure. And, I think maybe there'll be a chance for me to take Andy, Krishamir, Andrew, maybe someday we'll all go on a trip there together and go on some
Oh,
adventures.
that would be so much fun. Yes,
Yeah.
tomorrow, next week. I don't know.
And the food is
Good.
amazing. I mean, that's the one thing about
Yeah.
Japan, is whether it's Japanese food or French food or Italian, every restaurant you go, and whether it's just a fast food place or a Michelin star restaurant, the food is so amazing there. They're so amazing.
Is it like the UK in the way that I'm actually, we've got Andy here as well, who might provide different perspective. Obviously, I've been to the US quite a few times now, and obviously you have the tipping culture. What is the tipping culture in Japan? Because it's not really existent in the UK, and I'm not sure if there is a tipping culture in Germany. What's it like in Japan?
So in Japan, yeah, tipping is not part of their culture originally, and I think these days, I think there is a service charge
Mhm.
added to your restaurant bill, um, but I don't, and it's not discretionary. It's just a charge that's added to the bill, and I don't think it's necessarily given to the wait staff. I think it's just something they've adopted to be able to just get more revenue as restaurants. And this whole notion that um, a tipping system would make the service better is just so foreign to them because it's just
Mhm.
ingrained in them. They're like the most customer service oriented culture there could ever be. So giving good service is just assumed,
Hmm.
and the whole culture of tipping is very foreign to them. Although uh, similar to Germans, Japanese people travel a lot, and they're into learning about other people's cultures. So most people who are well traveled would understand what tipping is about.
Hmm. Does that ring true, Andy? In Germany, is there a tipping culture in Germany?
Yeah, we have a tipping culture, but I would say it's more in the US. It's just a little bit more extreme. Here
Yeah.
it's like 15, 20, sometimes 25%.
Mm.
And for example, I don't know, if you have 37 euros, you would just in Germany you would just round up to 40 euros, or
Right.
like 2 or 3 euros, and it's fine. If it's a group of 5 or 6 people, maybe you give 10, but I don't think you would give 20 or even 25%. That's not expected
It
from
is.
you.
It is bizarre. It is a very obviously being an Englishman in the US was one thing anyway, but just an odd concept that has somehow spread everywhere. I mean, I got married last year, and my honeymoon was in the Dominican Republic. They've adopted the tipping culture. The Americans have messed that up as well. So,
Yeah.
thank you for that. Appreciate it. So, how did you like? Did you have a father that was in the military? Was it like a traveling salesman or something like that? How did you end up in Japan?
So it's kind of a long story, but my family goes back. Let's see, one, two, three. So I'm kind of the fourth generation of my family in Japan, because my family is mainly Russian in origin,
Mhm.
and on my father's side, my grandmother was from Siberia, and her um, family was killed, by the Bolsheviks, and she ended up getting adopted by her uncle, who she, considered to be her father because she was just an infant at the time. And he had a fishing fleet based out of Siberia, and he had a cannery in northern Japan, and so that's where she ended up. They ended up just cutting ties with Siberia, and they were in northern Japan. And my grandfather on my father's side was from the Ukraine, and he worked his way over to Japan working on ships, and then ended up going to work for uh, you know my grandmother's father, and then they eloped because they're you know they were they married against the wishes of her
Yeah,
family.
cultural
So
clash.
yeah, so they eloped, and they ended up living in Shanghai, and they lived in Cuba, and then they were displaced after World War II, and they had no citizenship. They were stateless, and they wanted to come to America, but they couldn't get in because of the immigration quotas. And Japan at the time, post-war Japan was a place that was accepting refugees, which is what they were.
Mhm.
So they already knew Japan, and ended up moving to Tokyo. And eventually, my grandfather started an import-export company, uh, which my father, took after and ran for many years. I'm so sorry. I have to. It's just all the coffee I drank. I have to excuse myself just one more time. I'll be right back.
No worries.
So
No
ask
worries. We'd
Andy
love
some
to continue
questions.
this. Um, so we'll bring Charlie back in just a second here. So, what are your fondest memories of Resident Evil, Andy?
Oh, I guess just the typical childhood memories, not having to pay bills or anything, just to play a game, and that's everything that counts at the moment. You know what I mean? And Resident Evil just had such a huge part because it was my favorite game at the time. And I still remember the first time I heard about Resident Evil was when I um, was like what's it called in English? I slept at a friend's place,
Oh yeah.
and
Sleepover, yeah.
yeah, sleepover. Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. I had a sleepover, and he told me about the story about this mansion and about the Stars team trapped in there, and I was really fascinated by it because I was a huge horror film fan at the time, and I still can remember that I was so scared playing the first game because of the music. And now, if you hear it, it doesn't have the same effect, but back then it was just scary. And I even can remember when it was announced that the second game takes place in the city. And I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. So I can just run away, and it's not going to be as scary as the first one. But yeah, obviously I was wrong. But yeah, I still love to think about that time, and it was great. Yeah.
What did I miss?
Oh, we was just catching up about Resident Evil related things,
Oh, okay.
But going back to Japan, then. So we was up to your grandmother and I guess your grandfather being stateless.
Right. And they couldn't immigrate to the States, and they ended up going to Japan, Tokyo. And so at the time, it was post-war Japan. There wasn't a lot there. It was pretty decimated. And my grandfather started doing business with the PX on the Army base, the U.S. Army base. So for those of you who don't know, the PX is basically like the supermarket on the Army base, and he started selling things to them. I think including like whiskey and things like that. Eventually, he and a Japanese partner opened a ladies' stocking factory, which was very successful. And then the Japanese partner bought him out. And then uh, around that time was when my father had already graduated. He went to McGill, which is a very uh, um, elite school in Montreal, an elite college. And he came back to Japan to work for my grandfather. And around that time, they started importing gemstones, mainly from South America, into Japan and selling them wholesale. And so they were actually pioneers of the amethyst. Was like a big score for them. They were uh, um, selling about 80% of the amethysts in Japan for a time. Did really well with that. And then eventually my father started doing more like finished jewelry, like buying jewelry from famous companies and selling them wholesale in Japan. And he's still somewhat involved in that business as a consultant, but he's like 86 years old now, so he doesn't do a whole lot.
What is the retirement age in Japan?
I don't. Yeah, I don't think there's. All right, I guess there is. Like, if you're like a company man, if you're working for a company, I think they usually have you retire. I think it's similar. It's probably like 60 or 65. Probably similar to the States. And the sad thing is, that the culture of working for a company in Japan, it's changed recently, but it used to be once you went to work for a company, that was it. Like you worked for them, your whole career. People didn't move around the way people do now. And so a lot of these Japanese men from my father's generation, that was their whole life, was working for a company. And then come the day that they retired, they just didn't know what to do. Like they were completely lost. And sometimes there's stories about like these guys that they would still put on their suit and just go ride around on the train all day and things like that because they just didn't know what to do with themselves. Yeah.
Is that still a thing though? The one company, the one company
No,
man, or is that a
no,
bygone era?
the younger generation's really not like that at all. And I think, the whole culture of companies is changing. It used to be like you would never leave the workplace if your boss was still there. And a lot of bosses would work late nights, and even if there wasn't anything to do, you'd have to just stay there until your boss went home. That's kind of like the culture, but it's not like that now. Like they've definitely, I think, adopted a lot of how Western companies do business.
Well, actually, I would say Germany's probably like a market leader in doing the most minimum amount of hours a week. I think it's like aren't you on 4-day weeks now in Germany?
Oh no, there's talks about it, but maybe it's in the future. But at the moment, it's like where I work, it's a 40-hour week, so 5 days a
normal.
week, 40 hours,
Yeah.
just normal. 8
I think
hours a day.
France is very much that way. I think France is like a 30-hour week, and like there's all these restrictions on employers that they can't make their employees work more than a certain amount of hours and that sort of thing.
I do remember hearing something about that. I don't know how you just get anything done
Yeah.
with such few hours. By the time you sat down, had a coffee, you're at lunchtime, and then you're at home. Like, God, not productive at all. But
it's possible. I guess you just have to be very productive if you work less hours. It's just yeah. But we also have this. I mean, I remember before COVID, it was everyone came into the office and you have your coffee and you just chat in the kitchen and then go to work and it's 10 or 11 and then it's happens.
But in Japan, so Japan's not just like an urban myth about you literally work you leave the house at 6 a.m. You're not getting back until like 11 p.m. on a good day.
That's the way it used to be. I'm not sure how much it is today. And then you would also spend a lot of time after work with your workmates and bosses, and that was the time where, like, if you go, the typical thing is you go and do what Westerners call karaoke, which actually is pronounced karaoke. But the singing, is a big part of entertainment for them. They like to go to these bars and sing the songs and drink whiskey and water is kind of the thing that they like to do. And that's kind of the opportunity. Like once you've had some whiskey, you can just unload on your boss and tell him everything that you really think. And it's forgiven the next day because it's assumed that, well, you were drunk and that's why you said those things. But it's kind of like an outlet for them where the boss can know exactly what they're really thinking and they can let off some steam. And then the next day they just all go back to pretending like that didn't happen, kind of a thing.
Do you think that's more of a toxic workplace than say if you were doing like 25-hour work weeks? Like, I appreciate they're both extremes, but what is the worst extreme, would you say?
So I think with the Japanese people, it was just kind of part of their culture and part of the way they do things. And but a lot of Japanese men die early because of work stress, because there's so much pressure on them in the workplace. And I think that's a bad thing. I think that's a terrible thing. But to go the other extreme, where the government regulates how many hours people can work to such a a short amount of hours that nothing can get done, I think that's also a bad situation. Which one's worse? I guess people dying is worse. So maybe the overworking people is a worse model. But how can you? Yeah, 25-hour work week. How could you get anything done? Just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Did you drive when you was in Japan?
So in Japan, you're not able to get a driver's license for a car until you're 20.
Right.
And so when I turned 16, I got a motorcycle license, which you're allowed to get a motorcycle license, but it's a limited one. So you can't ride anything that's bigger than 400 cc. So I had a Kawasaki 400 ZZR when I was an adult. Like when I was a teenager, I had like just a little scooter. But as an adult, I got myself a 400 ZZR, and would just routinely go like 190 kilometers an hour everywhere. It's amazing I'm still alive. And I never owned a car there. I mean, I've driven cars there, just like rental cars for like moving house and things like that. But yeah, I've never owned a car there. And actually in Tokyo, it's not possible to own a car until you can prove you have a parking space for it.
Which makes sense.
So it's very exclusive owning a car, and you really don't need a car in Tokyo. I mean,
It's
ridiculous.
super pedestrianized, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many buses and trains and subways to get where you're going, and it's just so seamless that having a car is just kind of like a status symbol there usually.
That's fascinating. It's so fascinating. It's weird because obviously Japan drive on the same side of the road as the UK. It's actually one of the only few countries in the world that. So it must have been quite an easy like adaptation to drive. Or I'll take it you drove in the UK, or did you?
Yeah. Yes, you're right. And actually, in post-war Japan, it was the English engineers that designed the road system. And so there's, the M25 in London, the big circle, right? They have the same thing in Tokyo. It's the exact same design. Yeah. What do they call that? It's the it'll come to me in a minute. I can't remember the name of that roadway, but yeah. So English people designed it, and maybe that's why they drive on the left. I'm not sure. And when I was in London, oh my God, I owned the most incredible car I've ever owned. It was a 1986 Lotus Eclat. And so the Lotus Eclat from the front looks just like the Lotus Esprit. If you remember the James Bond movie with the white Lotus that turns into a submarine.
Oh yeah, I'm just looking at it now.
Yeah. And so the Esprit, oh my God, gorgeous, gorgeous car. The Eclat was, from the front, it looked just like an Esprit, but the back was kind of chopped off and more square. And oh my God, that car, like it would go around a corner like it was on rails. And it was just so much fun. And it wasn't that expensive to buy it, but then not that long after that, I had to get a new exhaust system, and that was ridiculously expensive to get someone to basically custom make the exhaust system for it. It was just, I don't even remember. I think it was like £5,000 or something. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And so after you spent your brief stint in the UK, you went to was it New York, was it? After that?
Yeah. So in London, after it didn't work out at the production company that I was working for, I went to work for Gulliver's Travel Associates, which is like a huge. Now it's like a multinational company. Back then, it was just an English company, and they contract and package services for tourists, like buses and guides and restaurants. What is referred to as land services. They would package those and sell them to travel agencies that would then, package it with the airfare. So we had offices all over the world, and I worked in their Japan department. So I was doing like the arrangements for Japanese tour groups all over Europe, and being an emergency contact for them. That was kind of my gig. And then they promoted me to operations manager for the New York office, and I moved to New York in 2000.
What, New York City or the state?
Mm-hmm. New York City.
Okay.
And then I worked for them in New York for about 3 years. And then there was an opportunity to be a sales rep for them on the West Coast, where, most of my family had settled. So I jumped on that and came out here and worked for them. And I didn't enjoy that role at all. Like being a sales rep, basically you just, drive around all over California, visiting the customers, and, and just kind of hobnobbing with them. And I just didn't like that at all. And that's when I left the travel industry. But so that was around 2005, and they brought me back. They were like, we need someone to go and sort out our new office in Hawaii. And so I was like, okay. So I went
No
and
worries.
yeah, I went and worked in Hawaii for 6 months. And then they wanted me to stay on like permanently, but I really had just kind of had it with that industry. I wasn't really into it anymore. So, but I got a nice little 6-month stint in Hawaii. It was the last thing I did for them. And then I came back, and I kind of, around that time, decided to try acting again. So it was like around 2005, 2006. And I started doing commercial acting in San Francisco, and waiting tables, in the evenings to pay the bills. And did that for about 6 years. And then I moved to LA and tried it there for a while, but I had kind of lost steam by then. I wasn't that serious about it anymore. I did acting in LA for a few years, and then I just kind of put it behind me.
And then is that when you decided to get into the exportation of, was it fish? Fish, was it?
I worked for the fish company, from I think about 2019, I want to say. Not for a long time, but yeah, they were just kind of like a startup. It was an office in Northern California for this company, and the company has existed in Tokyo for a very long time. They're like one of the oldest fish companies in Tokyo, and a very famous fish company. And this seemed like a really good, like, ground level opportunity, because there were only 2 guys running it, and they were doing really well, and they were really busy. So I answered an ad for their company as a delivery driver. And then once they met me, they thought, okay, well, you can do the deliveries at first. But we want you to help us grow this company, doing sales for us. And it all seemed really promising. But yeah, then COVID happened.
So this is a great segue actually. Build a Mansion just put a question in here. What
Okay.
of all of everything that you've all the travels you've been on, what would you say, outside of the Keeper's Diary, of course?
Right.
What would be your favorite occupation?
So I'm assuming the question means like of the things I've done.
Yes.
The time that I was an actor and a casting agent in Tokyo, like, as a young man, I was, still in my 20s, and I was making really good money, and I was on movie and TV sets every day, or at auditions. It was busy time, but I loved what I was doing. And I, uh, kind of was a bit of a ladies' man at the time, let's say. And Tokyo was a fantastic place for that.
What, from
Uh,
locals or from foreign women?
yeah, both Westerners and Japanese women. There's kind of an area in Tokyo called Roppongi where everyone would go for the nightlife. And there was a certain. I wasn't really that much into Japanese girls. I don't know why. They're beautiful, but I just wasn't that much into them. But a lot of my friends were, and there was always tons of Japanese women that would come hang out at these bars and clubs, hoping to meet a Westerner. Like, that was their goal for the evening, was to come and hook up with a Westerner. And I would always have 2 helmets with me for my motorcycle, just in case.
Of course.
And it was just it's just like the time of my life, right? It was like when I was in my 20s, and I look back on that time, and yeah, that was my favorite thing for sure. Not as much, being a casting agent, like that was just what I did so that I could do the acting work. So yeah, definitely acting, voiceover work, that was to me the best occupation I've had so far.
So yeah, I'm not sure what this is. You might be able to shed some light on this. I really liked you in Heart NIS. Does that ring a bell? What that is?
Heart, yeah, Heart NIS is it was a Japanese show where I played the love interest of a Japanese girl, and my father, in the story, my father disapproves of it, because he's a war veteran, like he fought against, in the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
He was a U.S. soldier, so he didn't. Oh, there you go, Heart and Yes, there it is, right there. But at the end of the day, he comes around and approves of our love, and it was a very dramatic kind of. But it's just like a little short. It was a show that had 4 different stories that were kind of interconnected, and I think it was about a 1-hour show. So I think my segment of it was, I don't know, like maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
So was this before Resident Evil? Or was this after Resident Evil?
I'm pretty sure this is before. Yeah, I don't remember the exact year, but I'm fairly certain this was before I did Resident Evil.
Is it? So I'm just. Is it dubbed? Is it?
I think.
Let's have a look.
Not gonna let us marry until he's dead.
Oh no,
No,
you're
that's my
English.
voice. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my voice, and everything was in English for this segment. But some of the other segments were Japanese actors, speaking in Japanese. But
did you not think, why didn't they just ask you to do the Japanese?
Well, my part was subtitled, and my character was supposed to, I think, be an American.
Right.
I could have dubbed it for them if they wanted it dubbed. I could have dubbed it in Japanese for them, but I think they chose to do subtitles because you get a better feel for the acting with subtitles than you do with dubbed, I think.
This So what would this be classed as? A drama, would it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Is it like a soap opera or?
I think it was just kind of a one-off show. I could be wrong, but I think it was just kind of like a one-off show, like an evening drama show. That I don't think it was a serial. I don't think they, I think they just made one. But yeah, that old guy who played my dad, his name's Tony Cetera, and he was a weird dude, like
Go on.
bordering on like a homeless guy kind of a guy. But he was really successful. Like he got a lot of commercials, and he was just like a weird character, like kind of like a real character actor kind of a guy. And there weren't many guys like that, Westerners like that in Tokyo. So he did a lot of commercials, a lot of work. But I had to represent him. He was a fucking nightmare.
Oh, sorry, I've just realised that this is actually your YouTube account. Is this your like?
Oh, is
show
it mine?
reel, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some stuff on there from Japan, like old stuff.
That's fucking. Do you ever look back and think, man, like I've worn so many hats in my life.
Yeah, I do feel that way, and I'm planning to stick around a lot longer. So see what happens next.
I know you said you was fluent in Japanese. As I know it's like riding a bike, I guess, but does it ever kind of leave you? Do you ever stutter? Do you ever? Because I always appreciate, especially like if people learn English. Actually, perfect example is obviously Andy. How Andy can unconsciously talk English. I always find that so fascinating because his mother tongue is not English.
Right.
He's not even thinking about it. He just does it. Are you like that with Japanese, even if you don't speak like it for a long time?
So my comprehension doesn't go away. Like, I can understand people speaking Japanese perfectly. Even, there were periods in my life where, yeah, I just wasn't involved with doing business with Japanese people or socially. There were years at a stretch where I didn't have any need to speak Japanese. And then, all of a sudden I was in a situation where I needed to. And it did feel like, what do I say? It would take me a little longer to remember the words. And, but it comes back, it's kind of like after a week or two of being immersed, then it fully comes back. But my Japanese to begin with is not at, like a college educated Japanese person. Their vocabulary is ridiculous. There's like, I think you need to learn about 6,000 of the characters just to read a newspaper. So I never really was that interested in studying the written language because it's very, very, very complicated. And my kind of conversational Japanese is perfect, but there's a lot of Japanese words that I don't understand. I don't know when it starts to become something that's more specific to a, like, let's say to a technology or to an industry or, something that's not just layman's terms. Then sometimes I get a little bit lost.
I suppose that's the same for like regional dialects and that sort of thing. That probably like maybe, and again, just assuming that maybe like Tokyo has one accent. You go out into the villages, they have another accent, which may be quite hard to understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of
And I think Japan is that way more than a lot of other places. Japan is such a long and skinny country, from north to south. And there's so much variation in not only just the dialect, but there's certain places in Japan where even though they're both speaking Japanese, they don't understand each other at all. Like it's that crazy. Different. Yeah.
So is there something like we have in German, we have something called High German, So like a
Mhm.
basic German. So do the Japanese have this as well? Like a basic dialect that everyone can understand, or
Yeah. So, I know that there's, I think there's a different kind of um, vocabulary, should we say. For example, for the imperial family of Japan, there's certain words that is only for them to use. And there's definitely a different way to speak to each other in Japanese, depending on whether you are above or below in status. So when you're speaking to someone who's above your status, there's a certain way to speak. When you're speaking to someone who's your equal, there's a certain way to speak. And when you're, speaking to someone who is on socially on a lower ladder than you, there's a different way to speak.
It's bizarre, isn't
Um,
it?
and there's, I mean, it's the same words, but just different endings. And there's like normal, polite, and extra polite Japanese, basically.
That's fascinating that they, you'll see like French will have like male and female words. I didn't realize that there were like almost class based like language. That's so peculiar.
And yeah, and then the dramatic difference would be dialects, like I was explaining earlier, where people are from two different sides of Japan, and even though they are speaking Japanese, they just don't understand each other. And then there's Okinawa, which is an island which is very far to the south, and their language is just completely different to the rest of Japan. Just, it is just a completely different language. But I think they probably also can speak Japanese. But what they speak to each other, I guess, would just be called Okinawan, because it's not
Oh, it's literally
Japanese
it's not
at
even
all.
classed as Japanese.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of like I find Dutch, like I've been to Amsterdam a few times. I find Dutch very similar to English.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can like the written Dutch anyway. It's so comparable. So actually, German in that. Well, obviously it's a West Germanic language, so it would make sense if that carried across. Obviously, Andy, you're obviously German. So in school, I take it heavy. Like we're not really pushed to learn a second. I almost feel like the Western world, especially in the English-speaking Western world, we're almost ignorant of other languages because we believe the trading business language is English, the Hollywood language is English, the showbiz language is English, etc., etc. It's almost like there's no need to learn another language. So, as someone who is a non-native English speaker, why bother learning English?
I mean, for especially for me, it was because of the German censorship in the 90s and early 2000s. Back then, if you want to have the full experience, you have to watch it in English or play it in English, because the German versions were just butchered. Like, I mean, Resident Evil 3, the original version, for example, it was like blinking zombies and gray blood, and you just couldn't play it. So I had to play it in English, and that helped a lot. But even in school, I mean, the first language you learn, I guess, would be English. But later on, you can choose between French and Spanish. And I mean, if there are teachers who can teach it to you, then you can choose other languages as well. But English is like, I would say, the basic foreign language you expected to learn in German schools. But I have to say that it's not proper English. It's not good English. It's very, like we say, it's school English. So if you have to, if you want to
real
learn
conversational
real
English,
yeah, you have just to talk to people and watch movies, I guess, and play games. It really helps.
But I am, as I said, I'm always really impressed. It doesn't matter where I've been, actually, whether I've been to France, whether I've been, like I was in Poland like last month. People's ability to speak English is unreal. you could just ask some randomly in the street, and I would say 8 or 9 times out of 10, that person can at least string a sentence together. And I think that is so impressive. It really is so impressive. And actually, it's a disservice, especially if you're from a European descent, but you live in an English-speaking country like the US or like the UK. You're just completely ignorant of other. It's kind of sad in a way, really. You even though you have the ability. Like, I had the ability to learn French. I could speak French, very, very, very basic French, but it's not like anywhere else where it's like, no, like, you got to take this shit seriously because the business world is English, the trading language is English, etc. Did you ever find that, Charlie, when you was in Japan?
Japanese people, I think, maybe not everywhere in Japan, but certainly in Tokyo, everyone studies English at school. They tend to be much better at reading and writing English than speaking it, and they tend to be very shy about speaking it because they just don't, they don't like to make mistakes.
Mhm.
Although some of them will just excitedly run up to foreigners because they want to practice their English. Like kind of giddy schoolgirl type people sometimes will just, oh, there's a foreigner, let's go practice our English. And I would say almost almost everywhere in Tokyo, people speak some English, at least some. And even their signs, like street signs, subway train station signs, are all bilingual in Japanese and English. Not always true outside of Tokyo.
Mhm.
But yeah, a very, very English friendly place. Yeah, Tokyo. Like if someone doesn't speak English, they'll still find a way to help you because that's just who they are. But most of the time, Japanese people will speak at least a little bit.
Man, this is crazy. I just read a comment there, and it's just like blowing my mind a little bit. I'm in the UK. Andy's obviously he's in Utah at the moment, but he's German. You've been everywhere. We've got people in the chat from Saudi Arabia. We've got people in the chat from the US, Portugal, Persia, etc., etc., etc. Oh, not Persia, excuse me, Iran. Resident Evil is this weird global brand which all came about because not just because of your appearance, but you were involved in some like obscure Japanese game.
Yep.
And now it's this absolute global powerhouse, and holds a lot of nostalgia for people, I think, like, especially when they see you.
Yes, that's the reaction I get quite a lot. Is oh gosh, I remember as a young as a teenager, coming home from school or sneaking back to my room so I could play the game, those kind of stories. And it's humbling, like, and just really cool to me. And yeah, you're right. Like, I guess survival horror like has no borders. Like, people love it all over the world. So yeah, and if it can bring people closer together, then that's even more amazing.
It is like, and again, because you've got the whole like rose tinted glasses, nostalgia, yesteryear was a better time, etc., etc. You're almost part of people's childhood that you've never met in your life.
Right.
I can't even comprehend how I would even react to that. Like, Andy was probably the same, and Andrew was probably the same. JJ was probably the same. We all have this vision of just sitting down, playing our original PlayStation, and seeing you, and you being here in the flesh, being as accessible as you are now, is unreal. I think it's a unique case. You're almost a one of one. This doesn't happen. This isn't meant to happen. This podcast is not meant to happen. But it's because you've really taken it in your stride. Oh no, he's gone again.
No,
Oh no, it's cool. It's cool.
no, but
He'll be back in a minute.
yeah, but that's the exact thing I say. It feels so unreal,
Hmm.
and I still can't believe it because I see myself 20 or over 20 years ago. God, I'm old. 25 years ago. I see myself as a little kid, sitting in front of the TV, and
Okay, I
yeah,
think I'm
there's
back.
back. Yeah, and
Yeah, go on,
it's
Andy.
just unreal.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. It is. And again, like this was a game in the early 90s. They come up with this idea. Oh yeah, we're going to adapt. We're going to adapt Sweet Home. We've got this idea from a Japanese. What was it? A horror film, Sweet Home.
Yeah, it was a horror film, and then they did a NES game, I
That's right.
think, and after that, Resident Evil, it was supposed to be a remake of that game, but with like a new spin, as far as if that's correct. There's a lot of information
Yeah.
out there, and not everything is correct, but it makes sense. I mean, even if you look at the item management of Sweet Home and all the similarities, it makes sense.
Yes, in a mansion. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
yeah.
absolutely. But you must just wake up sometimes, Charlie. And you're like, aside from the absolutely ridiculously well-traveled life you've had, you must think like, wow, like I'm involved with so many people unintentionally.
Yeah, it was quite a shock, discovering that after the fact. So whatever it was, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and I don't think it's kind of sunk in at first. That people all around the world, spent their childhood, people of a certain age, like people about your guys' age, spent their whole adolescence playing these games and feel like it's an intrinsic part of who they are. I remember I even had somebody write to me and said that it was because of me and Chris Redfield in that game that they chose to be a police officer, for example. And I hear kind of similar things from fans quite a lot, and it's at first just weird. I was like, what? And but more and more, it's it just makes me feel like really, really lucky. I'm just a guy that they chose. Like, I had the right look, and I had the right connections to get to play that part. Right place, right time, kind of a thing. And then, the weird thing was just not even knowing it until like 20 years later.
But what you can say in 30 years, 35, 40 years, when you're sitting in your chair, your rocking chair, you can say, I made a difference in the world.
It's true. Yeah, I never thought that would be the case. I mean, I guess, there's some kind of butterfly effect where we all affect each other somehow, but I never imagined that it could be on a scale like this for me.
Agreed. This has been a wild episode today. We've gone over a little bit longer than I thought we would, so I do apologise. But we've discussed geopolitics. We've discussed the Keeper's Diary, favorite games. Oh, it's different cultures. It's been absolutely beautiful. Is there any last things, Charlie, you want to say before we wrap up today?
I am just over the moon, to be involved in these projects and to be loved by so many people. And it's coming soon. It's coming soon.
Agreed. Yeah, we'll be obviously Residents of Evil, Biohazard Class 5. We'll be running, like, helping the system with the marketing as we can to get it out there. I'll try and catch up with you at some point, Andy, in the future, just about popping over to Germany, because you're only like an hour flight or something like that, hour and a half flight. we need to do more
Yeah.
shit together. So we'll make something happen.
We should.
Um,
Sounds
but yeah,
good.
best of luck on the Keeper's Diary, gentlemen. And yeah, I really hope it's a
Thank you.
runaway success. And you know, we'll all do our best to get it out there, so at least people can see it.
Thank you, Andy, and yeah, I love your show. I'll try and pop by more often.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It's really, really appreciated checking us out today. I've been Andy from the Residents of Evil. We will catch up with all of you very, very soon. Please hang around after the show.